So how's the response in this advanced poll?
It's been very positive. I've been getting a lot of feedback from people who have let me know that they've already gone out to vote for me, and so I'm hoping we'll continue to see that positive momentum leading into the main election day.
So if we want to tell them who the Andrew Knak is, so can you briefly tell people who you are?
Certainly. So I was born in Edmonton, grew up in the city of Spruce Grove just to the west, and moved back into Edmonton when I was attending university.
If we say like accomplishments as a councillor in last 3 terms, what you will want to name?
Oh goodness, long list, but I'll give a few highlights. So in the ward I represent in the West End.
Are you able to tell us like people are getting the dollar value?
I don't know if they're getting it to the level they should yet. And that's part of why I made a motion back in December to restructure how the city of Edmonton will budget, where we'll actually go through and set a brand new foundation.
24% tax was increased in last 4 years in one term. Where was Mr. Andrew Knak?
So this is actually the first time that I voted against a 4-year budget. So in December 2022, when the budget came forward.
Property taxes are also increasing. So this is kind of double pain.
Well, and it's important to note that council salaries have typically been tied to the average change in the average weekly earnings of Alberta.
You're watching Global Desi, and as you know, municipal elections in Edmonton, they are scheduled for October 20th, 2025. And in this election, you or we all will elect one mayor and 12 councillors. One of the mayor candidate, Mr. Andrew Knak, is here with us today. Hello, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for coming to our campaign office.
And how is the campaign going on?
It's going very well right now. It's going to be a tight race. Looks like it'll be a 2-person race right down to the wire, but we're working hard every single day to get out to connect with as many different people as possible.
So how's the response in this advanced poll?
It's been very positive. I've been getting a lot of feedback from people who have let me know that they've already gone out to vote for me, and so I'm hoping we'll continue to see that positive momentum leading into the main election day.
Lots of people, they moved to Edmonton just in few last years.
Correct.
So if we want to tell them who the Andrew Knak is, so can you briefly tell people who you are?
Certainly. So I was born in Edmonton, grew up in the city of Spruce Grove just to the west, and moved back into Edmonton when I was attending the University of Alberta. I went to school for business. That's been my background. And back in 2013, I ran for city council after running twice unsuccessfully in 2007 and 10. I ran again in 2013 and was fortunate enough to be elected to serve as the city councillor. So I've been a city councillor now on the city of Edmonton council for the last 12 years.
So you are technically city councillor for 3 terms.
3 terms.
13, 17 and 21.
Correct.
From ward number 1, and now it's known as Nakota Isga, right?
Correct.
If we say like accomplishments as a councillor in last 3 terms, what you will want to name?
Oh goodness, long list, but I'll give a few highlights. So in the ward I represent in the West End, we're advancing projects like the Lewis Farms Recreation Center and Library. We know how critical those hubs are to communities. We're building out the single largest infrastructure project within the city of Edmonton, which is the Valley Line West LRT. We've been renewing a lot of old and aging infrastructure, and as a city, we set up a vision of how our city will grow to a city of 2 million people and how that will happen. So, gosh, there's probably we could go on for hours about things I've been very fortunate to work on, but at the end of the day, I'm just fortunate that I've been able to work with community to help make all of these things happen. This is never a solo operation. It has to be with community in partnership to make these accomplishments happen.
Yeah. So if we talk about the burning issues in these elections, I would say property tax is a big issue.
Yes.
And if I'm not wrong, in last 4 years, around 24% tax is increased.
That's right.
And are you able to tell us like people are getting the dollar value?
I don't know if they're getting it to the level they should yet. And that's part of why I made a motion back in December to restructure how the city of Edmonton will budget, where we'll actually go through and set a brand new foundation, go through every single business area to make sure we can show that value. Because I hear from a lot of people at the doors, it's not that they're opposed to paying property taxes, but if they're not seeing the value, are they getting their streets cleared enough? Are they getting the grass cut enough? Do they feel safe? If those things aren't being addressed, then it's hard to stomach paying more. And so what I'd like to do is make sure that we stop seeing the extremes. So if you go back to the previous 4-year budget from 2019 to 2022, we had the lowest tax increases in more than 25 years. These ones have been some of the highest in the last decade. I'd like to be more thoughtful and try to be more moderated, where we're still investing in the city, but we're doing it in a responsible way.
So when this 24% tax was increased in last 4 years in one term, where was Mr. Andrew Knack?
So this is actually the first time that I voted against a 4-year budget. So in December 2022, when the budget came forward, I actually voted against it in part because I felt we weren't putting enough into certain core services, in particular snow removal. And I wanted to make sure that if I was going to ask people for what was at the time about a 20% increase, 5% each year, that I could then point to, here's what you're going to get for that. And particularly with snow removal, I felt it wasn't enough of an investment increase. So I didn't support the overall operating budget. And it's part of why I want to restructure our budget for the next 4 years going forward.
I was just checking out the salaries of mayor and the councillors.
Yes.
So I think the salary for the mayor is more than 200,000 a year.
Correct. Yeah.
And this is the highest among the country, right?
Yeah.
Mayors of the country.
That's right.
Right? And councillors, they're getting around 126,000.
Yeah.
Do you think this is really too much big, burden on the exchequer of the city?
So about 25 years ago, the city council of the day hired, or not hired, but actually appointed an independent citizen commission that would make recommendations every so often about what council salaries should be. And I've always been a huge supporter of that process because, the hard thing is when you're the one doing it, you should never be voting on your own salary. And so councillors do not, the mayor does not. This process, typically every 2 terms, there's an independent commission that's formed. They go and do a countrywide analysis. They do an analysis of unique considerations here in the city, and then they'll provide an independent recommendation of what salaries should be. So for me, I actually don't think council should have any say in it. This should continue to be an independent process because at the end of the day, you're never, you're going to always talk to people and say, oh, you get paid too much. And I would much rather an independent body determine how much I should get paid because I shouldn't be doing that.
Do you know when people think about the salaries, like salaries of the councillor and the mayor, they're increasing and increasing. On the other hand, property taxes are also increasing. So this is kind of double pain.
Well, and it's important to note that council salaries have typically been tied to the average change in the average weekly earnings of Albertans. So sometimes they go up, but also sometimes they have gone down. Because our salaries are tied to what the average Albertan is seeing of an increase or decrease, that's what council sees. And that's part of the recommendations we've seen from the independent commissions. Because, and here's the point, like even though our salaries make up a very small part of our overall budget, there's an affordability crisis right now. And we need to make sure that people aren't feeling that pinch. And so we need to do everything possible to find ways to keep our budget increases in a responsible way without compromising the public services people rely on. So for me, that's why I'll go back to, we need to restructure how the city budgets and then go through that really every department by department to get a sense of what we should be investing in, but do it with Edmontonians.
So if you get elected as a mayor, so what will be your stance on property tax? Are you going to freeze it or increase it, or what will be your?
So I've said my plan is to have a responsible budget that still invests in our city. And so what I mean by that is that freezing our property taxes when we've added 200,000 people in the last 4 years means we would actually have to start cutting back services because our city is growing and expanding.
Definitely.
I don't believe in cutting back on our transit service. I don't believe in closing down recreation centers or libraries early. I don't believe in reducing the staff in our police stations or our fire halls. I do believe that people don't want to see large tax increases either. So my view is let's have a responsible budget that allows us to still invest in new services, to add more buses because we're currently maxed out, to make sure we are expanding our infrastructure, providing new libraries and fire halls and rec centers and roadways. Those services still matter. And there are parts of the city that don't have them at all right now. So I want to invest in that. And I also want to invest in older neighborhoods that need renewal. but we need to be thoughtful about how much we spend on that. And that's why it's a responsible budget, but not an unrealistic budget. We're hearing too many from almost every other campaign. They're trying to promise that they can freeze your taxes and increase your services. That is not possible in a city that is expanding as much as we are. It might have been possible if the city's population was stagnant or going down. That's not happening in Edmonton. We have more and more people moving here every year. And so we also have to be realistic with Edmontonians. And this is why I said, got to be honest about the budget. Things cost money.
In the last election, 2021,
Yes.
The issue of red tapeism was really burning even at Still, we have the same problem. I always have conversation with small business people. They are always complaining we are applying for development permit, building permit, licenses, and still they are waiting for many, many, many days. What will be your vision?
So my plan is to take some of the success we've seen, specifically if you're trying to build a small-scale residential development, and expand that to anyone starting up a business. So we have seen a group, the Canadian Home Builders Association, did a countrywide analysis of the 23 largest municipalities and determined that Edmonton is the best city in terms of timelines to build a home. But if you want to start up a business, it's not. If you want to get a business license in certain areas, it's significantly more painful. If we can be the best here, we should be able to be the best in starting up a business. So my plan is to use that system and that structure and some of the automation that's been created, apply that to all businesses, because it is, when we're adding 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months to somebody starting up a business, that costs them tens of thousands of dollars. So we should be the best place to set up a business in the country. And the way we'll do it is actually modeling off what we do for the larger developers in the city, where we actually have a concierge service, somebody that navigates the entire process to get people through to building as quickly as possible. That should be available for our small and medium-sized businesses. 90% of businesses in Edmonton are small and medium-sized. They deserve the same treatment as a larger business in the city.
I have seen there are few services, you go to the registry, you get it there.
Exactly.
So I believe same services we can manage through the city hall too.
We absolutely can do it that way. And so that's a huge commitment. I have a very detailed economic policy on my website that will allow us to be the fastest place to start up a business.
When we talk about transparency and accountability,
yes,
I have seen your website, you put the list of the donations over there too. But when in the city council, as a councillor or a mayor, when we have the budget for a particular, suppose for snow removal or for grass cutting, I believe there should be transparency too.
Absolutely. So, well, first I'll just comment on the other piece. You're right. So I'm the only candidate running for mayor that has disclosed all of my donations, not just the ones that are legally required. And I have challenged every other mayoral candidate to do that, because if we want to talk about transparency, every candidate will always talk about transparency, something else entirely to walk the talk. And so I'm the only candidate who's walking the talk by disclosing those donations. And you're right, that same type of transparency should be expected across the entire city budget. So our budget documents are public. We actually have a city auditor that will go through and regularly audit different departments and branches across the city to make sure that we're seeing if we're getting value for that money, to make sure it's being spent appropriately. And there have been times when they've gone through their audits and found misuse of funds. And then that gives us the ability to hold those folks accountable to make sure that that's being addressed. But I'm glad we have this mechanism. The Office of the City Auditor in Edmonton is considered one of the best in North America. We need to continue to let them do their work to make sure everyone's getting their money spent appropriately.
I believe this is the first municipal election that party politics is allowed.
Yeah, not a fan of it.
So are you associated directly or indirectly with any political party?
No, no, I am strongly opposed to political parties in our local politics. Part of why I've been so opposed to it is that, when we talk about municipal issues, right? There's no right-wing way to clear snow. There's no left-wing way to cut grass. These are core municipal services. And we have seen now what happens when political parties operate, is that if you're elected as part of a political party, you put the loyalty to your party first above all else.
That's true.
And that should not be happening in our local government. In fact, I would argue it shouldn't be happening in our provincial or federal governments either. You should expect that the people that are elected to serve are representing all people, not representing the interests of their party. And they get fundraising advantages, so they can get even more big donors involved, all of this. So this comes back to at the end of the day, when the provincial government forced this upon Edmontonians, because 70% of people, when surveyed, said they don't want political parties in local government, we each had a choice to make. So I made a choice as a mayoral candidate to not be a part of that system, to not run as part of a party, because if people aren't wanting that, then I shouldn't be playing that game. And I don't believe that game is the right game to be played when it comes to our local democracy.
Okay. So again, the next topic is snow removal.
Yes.
A really big pain for Edmontonians, and city is spending almost $67 million every year on budget, like snow removal.
That's right.
The budget is increasing every year, but the service, we are not getting that service which supposed to be there.
That's right.
I have seen roads in Laurel or in other communities, even city buses, they cannot move there.
That's right.
There is sometimes they do remove the snow, but they don't put any sand over there, any gravel over there. So that's even more dangerous.
It is.
So, what do you think could be the better plan for snow removal, or to make sure this is kind of also public safety?
It's completely about public safety,
Right.
and you're right. It's interesting you mentioned Laurel. When I've been door knocking in Laurel,
Yeah.
that is one of the biggest issues I hear about, the snow removal.
I have seen
right?
buses are going like this.
That's right.
So, what you can imagine about the small vehicles?
That's right. So there's a few things we need to do, because it's actually only this 4-year budget that we've started to see an increase in snow removal. The snow removal budget really hadn't changed in the city up until 2023. That was where we first started to see some minor increases. My feeling, and this is why I talked about having voted against the last 4-year budget, is that I felt that increase needed to be more because the roadway network has grown so much. I mean, communities in Southeast, in Laurel, right?
Yeah.
Think about 10 years ago or 15 years ago and how big the city was then and how big we are now. We are significantly bigger in terms of physical size. So the budget actually hasn't kept up with what the roadway inventory is. So cities like Montreal, which are considered one of the best in the country, have a snow removal budget that's about $360 million. We only spend about $67 million, yet we have a larger roadway network and more space to cover. So this is why I actually think the city needs to invest more in snow removal, because we're not putting enough into this service. We've spread ourselves too thin.
I have seen some breakdown of the snow removal budget, like almost $37 million is spending on the roadways, and $30 million for sidewalk and bike lanes. Do you think in this winter, like we have harsh winter in Alberta, so 70 kilometers of bike lane isn't a big debt on our expenditure? Like,
so important to break out that number. You're right, because so specifically for bike infrastructure and only for bike infrastructure, the city spends about $600,000 a year, which is a lower percentage than the percent of people that bike. So when you're talking about the amount spent on roads and the amount spent on active transportation, about 98% to 99% of the budget is spent on either roads and sidewalks. And multi-use trails, because we know that those are where people are moving. So we need to clear our roads. We need to clear our sidewalks, because if you have low mobility, if you're a senior using a scooter or wheel-chair, if you're just a senior,
whoever is catching bus or
catching to the
like
exactly. So most of our budget is focused on those two areas. That's where the majority of the budget should continue to be focused on, because at the end of the day, 75% of our city drives, 25% of our city use transit, walk, or bike. But with most people,
I personally believe 70 kilometers of bike lane. How many people might be using these bike lanes in the winter? I don't think.
Yeah, winter ridership is growing in the city as our network expands. But I come back to the point, and this is something I've been firm on. And I'm a person that bikes all the time. I even bike in the winter. I'm one of those weird people that does it.
All right.
But we should be spending a proportional amount. So 2% of our city bikes. I don't think it's an unreasonable expectation to spend about 2% of our transportation budget. And as a city, we've actually spent typically less than 2% of our transportation budget on bike infrastructure, because we invest far more in roads. We've spent, in my time on council, $4.2 billion on building roads in the city, or expanding roads, or fixing roads, because that is an important component of our city.
And when we talk about the population of Edmonton, in the last few years, it's increasing every single year.
Yes.
And the number of libraries, recreation centers, parks, almost is the same.
That's right.
Roads are the same.
Mhm.
So, what's your plan for increasing these facilities for Edmontonians?
And this goes back to our earlier conversation about the budget, and it's
Yeah,
why I've said, and I'm very firm in this, is that we do still need to invest in our city. The idea that we should freeze our budget means that everyone in those new areas that is waiting on a rec center, waiting on a fire hall, waiting on those roads, waiting on more bus service,
yeah,
they'll never get it. We need to make sure we're investing in our city. We need to invest in the new communities. Those who are living in older communities also need their aging infrastructure renewed. So my plan is to have a responsible budget, but does still invest in all of those amenities I listed off because people actually deserve that. We know it helps their quality of life. We know it keeps people fit. I mean, I think about when I go to the Meadows
yeah,
Recreation Center
yeah.
and just the sheer number of people that are there, just sitting at tables talking to
I
each
know,
other,
I know.
right? Think about how important that space is to building community,
Yeah.
building safety. And so we need to invest in those spaces across the city. Everyone deserves the right to have those spaces.
Again, it will increase the budget.
It
So,
will.
for
So
that purpose, we need to find out the avenues where from we can get revenues.
exactly. And that's why part of my plan for this campaign is to also work to grow our non-residential tax base. I've already started that work in the West End where I currently serve. We actually invested in and partnered with a business that wanted to bring services to an unserviced industrial area. We split the cost 50-50. That allowed them to expand their business, hire hundreds of new employees,
Mhm.
and it's grown our non-residential tax base. So one of the most important things we can do with our next budget, along with reviewing the overall budget,
Mhm.
is actually work to grow our non-residential tax base so we can invest in those services because we should be investing in those services.
Last but not least,
Yes.
public safety and especially safety at workplace.
Yes.
These are big concerns. You might have noticed in last few months or couple of years, the um, news of extortion,
Yes.
arson, they are increasing.
That's right.
So people are not feeling safe, especially big business people.
Hmm.
So what will be the plan to make life of people more safer?
So this will take a couple of different changes.
That's a big issue. Yeah.
Because we can't rely on police alone to solve every problem because right now the police are actually one of the best resourced police services per capita in all of the country. And they have said, their own stats suggest that we're supposed to be at more than a 10-year low in our crime rate, but nobody actually feels safer right now. So everybody I talk to does not feel safer today than they did 10 years ago. So there's a few changes you need to make on the policing side. Some of that is just how the resources are distributed. On the south side of the river, there's actually only two divisions, southwest and southeast. So you talk about the extortion that's happening, and it's often happening to a lot of community members in southeast Edmonton, not exclusively, but it's a heavier concentration there. When you have only two divisions covering the entire south side of the river, what does that mean for the ability for police to do proactive enforcement, to be out in the community more often? We actually need to consider having a south central division so that southeast and southwest divisions have a smaller geographic area and can spend more time in the community, talking to community about what they're doing, being out there day after day. That's an important body of work that needs to happen. We do need to see, and we need to see the bail reform measures. And while that is federal, we have an advocacy role to play municipally to make that happen. We also need to make sure we're investing in some proactive services. When we're dealing with issues like housing and homelessness, police are often the first to respond. Well, if they're responding to something that is a disorder call, that means it's taking time away from them to focus on serious crime like extortion.
Yeah.
We need to, and this is something I proposed as mayor, which is that we're going to stop waiting on the provincial government to act on issues like housing and homelessness. We're going to take a greater leadership role using the money we're already spending, about 91 million a year, to be more proactive. By investing in those more proactive solutions, by investing in those upstream solutions, you free up police to focus their time and effort on serious crime.
I know you're pretty busy and you have to go for door knocking.
Yes.
Thank you very much for giving us time. And before we leave, if you want to convey any message to Edmontonians, you are free to go.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you for having me. And to all Edmontonians, I'm encouraging you on October 20th to vote for me. And my plan is to build a stronger Edmonton, an Edmonton that is safer, that is more affordable, and is one that keeps up with the growth that we've been discussing today. And I'm going to do this as an independent candidate, somebody that is listening to Edmontonians first and working for Edmontonians first. That to me is critical as we go forward. It's something I've done as a city councilor for the last 12 years, and it's something I will do as your next mayor.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.